Hi friends, it's Dawn the Recovery Lady here with week nine. That means we are getting better together. I am Dawn, D-A-W-N, not Don or Donna, which people, depending on what side of this country you're on, seem to mispronounce Dawn like the morning, the Recovery Lady. And this is my series, my first series I'm doing for my YouTube channel, The Recovery Lady. And it's on empty nest syndrome, a stage I'm going through myself. And although that's my main topic, I am a behavioral health clinician, and I take my personal experience along with my clinical insight and mix them together while sharing my own journey. I am an empty nest, going through the empty nest thing myself, and just kind of weaving it all in together here. All to say, if you aren't an empty nester, please watch and subscribe and like anyway, because these recovery principles are applicable to all areas of our life. So with that, we'll get started. Again, please subscribe down below, that when I can hit a certain number, I can start doing some lives and taking some live questions. So I'm working my way up to that. So moving forward, if you clicked on today, you see that we're talking about embracing change. You know, the fear of change immobilizes people. What does that mean? That means that I am so comfortable in what I have now. And the reason I'm comfortable is because I know how to function in what currently exists. Now, many of us fear change so much that we will stay in situations that are not our best, not God's best for us, or higher power's best for us, not what we are designed to be in. And it keeps us so immobilized, we never reach our full potential. Look, I'm not in my 20s, 30s, 40s. I'm way over all of that. And I'm starting YouTube for the first time because I know it's part of how I can use my skills and communications to make a difference. Something I hadn't tapped into. You know, I've done radio in the past, but the visual aspect of it. So you take a chance and you try to grow. When we fear change, we are stifling ourselves. We're suffocating ourselves. Change could be, as far as the empty nest syndrome, hey, that I know how to be the full-time parent, part-time parent, single parent. You can have a village raising your kids, full family, which is wonderful too, all the generations, but I know how to exist in this. So because I can exist in this, I'm not sure I can exist outside of it. So really, fearing change is like a fear, false evidence appearing real, fear, false evidence appearing real, a fear that I can't function outside of this. And it doesn't mean that what you are in right now is necessarily bad, but you've outgrown it. And it's a doubting of ourselves that we can't handle a new reality. So we start having anxiety. Anxiety and depression are often bred from a fear of change. When your kids have left the house, we've talked about this for 2 months now, and the new reality sets in and we don't know how to define ourselves, and maybe the free job we've been doing for 20, 30 years is gone. What's left? We've really worked up to this point to try to get and tap into ourselves, what we're meant to do, getting balance in our life and self-care. And now it's time for us to move forward and get out of our comfort zones. That change, fear of change creates anxiety. You know what anxiety is? Anxiety is a control issue. Anxiety, in my mind, means I don't know if I don't live in this space or in this house or have this job, if I can make it, because I don't know what will be there. So anxiety is just nothing more than not being sure we can handle, fearing something that the false evidence appearing real is going to take us out. But think of where you are right now. Think of where you're sitting. Think of where you've been. Think of I say in the description of these videos, we're here to build each other up, and this is a safe and sane community, and we're getting saner. We're here to build each other up, not tear each other down. The world does that. The world tears us down. So in getting well together, embracing change, looking at our new reality as empty nesters, or maybe you're out of a long-term relationship or marriage, or maybe you've lost someone. to death, and I'm so sorry if you did. I can't imagine that kind of grief. What does my new normal look like? Your new normal in this situation as an empty nester has been thrust upon you, forced upon you. If someone left you, that new normal is forced upon you. This is not something you chose for your life. And yes, no matter how hard it is, and I've been through a lot of situations, and there's people with less than me and people with more than me, and you can survive it. As we learn to trust ourselves and redefine ourselves outside of the parental role, we can find all those things we've taught our children are things we had inside of us, and how to cope, how to survive, how to leave the nest, how to fly free. And guess what? We can't change them. We did what we could with what we had. We're working to keep correcting ourselves and model what healthy behavior looks like, because it's still effective even when they're out of the house, when we take ownership and make amends for ourselves. And now you may not be seeing your kids a lot and doing a lot, but they're still watching you. I don't care if you're estranged. They still know what you're out there doing. There's an emotional connection. And as we continue to grow, even though they're not under our wings, and as we embrace change, we are teaching the future generations. They look up, that they can do it as well. The future generations, let me complete that thought, that they can do it as well. When we go through a life phase, what we do instinctually is go back to what did we see the person, maybe our primary caregiver, do at that life stage. That's how patterns get repeated. Negative generational patterns in families, and every family has one. It can be extreme with abuse. It can be mild with, I don't know, crappy gravy on Thanksgiving. But we repeat and pull from what we know, what we've seen, unless we've had an intervention where we've learned a better way to do it. I shared with you in another video when I was doing my undergrad, that first year, I took every parenting class in the college. I wasn't a parenting major, wasn't even sure I was going to have kids at that point, but I knew that I didn't have the skill set to be a good parent, to be an effective parent, and that I didn't want to pull from some things. And it doesn't have to be a parent. You could be raised by an aunt, an uncle. This is not pointing a finger at anybody. You could have come through the foster care syndrome system, and I certainly know folks who have done that too. But for whatever reason, you were deprived an ideal model. I decided to have an intervention, learn those skills so I could pay them forward. So even though your kids are gone, as you make changes and they say you adjusting to change, such as being an empty nester right now, and they see that you're not, like we talked about before, we never want to put a guilt trip on our kids. You're not going to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect, because you're just going to push them further away. They're going to dread that call, that text. Oh, I just don't want to hear it right now. That's what they're thinking. But as you're embracing it, saying, yeah, I'm doing great, and then go get your support, your counseling, come here, let's get the community to move forward. You're teaching them that they can handle change, and that they can handle change that you're probably not even going to live to be around to see later in their life. And they're going to know they can do it because you did it. That's how important embracing change is. It's, hey, we're all coming in with, I don't want to lose the influence over my kids and they don't need me anymore because I've trained them to fly out of the nest like good little adults, like they should. So we still have that influence. It's not totally over because they're gone. But also now it's twofold. When we embrace change, we're still teaching the next generation, and we're equipping them to know, because they're looking at us, that they can do it when they get there. So when they start pulling from what they saw at that point in their life, they're pulling from something healthy. I hope that makes sense. So, when you first get married, if you didn't have a healthy marital model in the home, that's how patterns repeat. That's how abuse repeats, addiction, abandonment, adultery, all the things that happen are repeated oftentimes because of what we saw wherever we came from. Until somebody stands in, jumps in, and says, no, this stops with me. I'm not going to have this move forward anymore. And it is not too late. You know, I had a patient in her 80s that got sober one time, and her son was in his 60s. And because she got sober, he was also an alcoholic and he got sober because in her 80s, it wasn't too late for her to model it. So as we embrace change, our kids are still learning from us. They are learning that they can grow. And we, by embracing it, are freeing ourselves from the shackles of thinking that we can't implement the skills we taught our kids to use to deal with things. We're modeling not only that, I'm going to see my best self too. I can change to this new normal, and we have to adjust because the only thing you can control is what's right here within a 6-inch radius around your body. We can only control what we do and how we respond to situations. Watch yourself when you're talking. Do you ever say, gosh, they made me so mad? Are you giving away your power? Why are they making you mad? They don't have the power to make you mad. They could disrespect you. They could hurt you, but we get to choose what boundaries we set and how we respond to people. So, to summarize all that, that's this. I think I'm going to have to do a part 2 on this one. That is how we begin to embrace change. Remember, we're doing a good thing because we're modeling for our kids who are already gone that they can do it later in life, and we're giving them skills when they see us do it. We are giving them skills on how they can do it as well in their future. We're paying it forward to the generations. And you don't have to be a parent to implement this. You can be an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, a friend, a mentor, and have that same effect. You know, when people come out of a lot of trauma, it only takes one person to believe in them. I don't care what you've been through. You have one person who had your back and believed in you, you're going to make it. You're not alone. There was a study that was done. Gosh, I saw this on like 60 Minutes or Dateline or one of those shows, probably, golly, 20 years ago. And it was on centenarians. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. People who live to be up to 100 years old, over 100. And they did a 7-continent study. I was so fascinated by this. And it took several years because they thoroughly investigated the people with the most longevity who hit 100. And I don't mean like debilitated, you know, you're not cognitively present. I mean functioning to the best of their ability at 100. And what did they have in common? The study, the idea of the study was to discover the commonality, the key to longevity. They looked at race, they looked at food, they looked at blood type. They looked at every possible thing, alcohol, drugs, diet, and across 7 continents. Do you know what the one thing those centenarians, gosh, I hope I'm saying that right again, had in common that they attributed the length of their life to? Nothing that you would have thought of. The reason that they lived that long, the one common thing they had is their ability to handle change. They interviewed this one lady, I cannot remember where she was from. They had an interpreter, and they said to her in the interview, you know, you've lost your spouse, you've lost children, you've even lost a grandchild. She was over 100. How did you do it? How did you, accept all that's a lot of loss? She never remarried or anything, and she just said because it's a cycle of life. Do you see how the control comes in? She said you can't prevent it. You have to accept it. It is the cycle. It's what happens. And if she was saying, if I had held on so tight to the fact my spouse or my child died and I couldn't function anymore, that's a control issue of me saying I need it this way to be okay, which means we're getting our happiness from outside ourselves. And I don't want to go into another topic on that, but that's how important embracing change is. That's how critical it is, that it leads to our longevity. I just decided a part 2 on this because I'd like to go over the stages of change. And of course, again, you can take these principles and apply them to any situation. Topically, we're talking about empty nest syndrome here. But I'm encouraging you to open your mind today and know that you can handle the change, that you're not alone, and that the new reality, when you build the trust in yourself that you can expand from what you're used to in the situation, being the parent that the kids don't need anymore, who does need you? What untapped things are you doing? It's going to be critical. Remember the centenarians. Remember the one common thing, their ability to accept and embrace change. I think part 2 is going to be on the stages of change, so we know what we're looking at. Again, thank you for joining me today. I'm Dawn, the Recovery Lady. I'm going to ask you to do something I haven't done before. If you could please, well, I always ask you to subscribe. I'm really trying to hit a certain number so we can do some lives. And if you could share, if you could just copy and paste a link to this channel in your social media, whatever you have, it's greatly appreciated, because you know what? If one person's going through this and you think this is helpful and they're alone, that's a dark place to be. And if this can encourage someone, it would be great. I appreciate you, friends. I love you. I'll see you next time. Bye.